Marine Blue Daisy with the song 1945, and you can probably see the screen looks a little bit different from normal today because this is a song that I'm not so much here to react and review to it in the normal way, because 1945, I mean, immediately the minute you say that title, you can kind of get a feeling of where this is going. And then when I tell you that Marine Blue Daisy are a very young band who came out of Nagasaki, it kind of gives you a bit more of an idea of, yeah, this is obviously going to go into a little bit more of a deeper territory. And so I wanted to give this song the proper care and thoughtfulness in reviewing it. So what I've done is I contacted the band and I said, well, look, I want to see the lyrics for the song if you don't mind, so I can get them translated and stick them on the screen. They very kindly at short notice DM'd me the lyrics back. I've got a translation of them down here. Now, I don't know if this is going to be particularly readable, but we'll look for it a little bit. If it's not too readable, we'll look for it a little bit after listening to the song. First of all, though, I wanted to play because we wanted to show you when the actual announcement of the song came out. They put this on their Twitter, which was a little bit of an announcement, just talking about the idea behind the song. And that, first of all, I translated. So I'm just going to quickly read through this before we listen to the song, and then we'll look at the lyrics after we've listened to it. Now, it says here, so 1945 we broadcast there at midnight. It just came out here in Japan. The song was released around May this year. The song began production after hearing about a theme song from NCC, but it wasn't released around May, so it might be wrong. But so they began production on this after hearing a theme song from NCC, which is the Nagasaki Cultural Broadcasting Corporation, basically a famous Nagasaki TV station. The subject is obviously the bomb. As someone from Nagasaki, I've always wanted to confront the atomic bomb at some point in my life, even if it had nothing to do with music. But now that I'm 18 years old and have moved to Tokyo, I wonder if it's okay for me to take on such a big theme in my music. If I was going to carry it, I thought it would be rude to only have a little knowledge I got from school or from the news, and I shouldn't make it half-heartedly, which is kind of, when I read that more reinstilled my feeling that I should take the same approach when actually responding to this song. She says here, with the help of NCC, so again, the Nagasaki Broadcasting Corporation, basically, we were able to tackle the issue thoroughly. It is a taboo topic to say anything definitive, so I was worried about what I could say to whom and how to confront the atomic bomb survivors and how to convey my message to younger people. I finally found the answer to this song. This is depicted in the lyrics of the song being released today. May it stay in my mind. May it be able to face the days without crying. May I be able to face the days without crying. May I be able to live happily. So you can see there's a lot of care has gone into this, a lot of thought. And before even diving into it, listening to the song, I mean, Marine Blue Daisy have generally been a very positive, uplifting band, but obviously people are people with depth. And 18 years old is both very young in a way, but at the same time, I think it shows a lot of character to address an issue like this. It's such an as she's worded it better than I ever could here. It's like it's a taboo subject, and when you talk about it, you have to think about who you're talking to. She's mentioned about survivors. She's mentioned about other young people who didn't experience it themselves. So I'm kind of interested. First of all, we're going to listen to the song, and then I haven't really picked through the lyrics yet, but I'm going to do that with you guys. We're going to read that together after listening to the song. But let's get into it first of all. It came out as an audio version on Spotify, 1945 by Marine Blue Daisy. It's a 5-minute long song. So let's get into it. I'm actually really intrigued to know what kind of tone we even go for here. So let's have a listen. Very beautiful. It's almost got a kind of it's almost a slightly Anchor-esque vibe to the vocal delivery. Melodic development's really beautiful. must say that's a beautiful progression. I'm loving how like the chords are sort of, there's a real feeling that there's no feeling of like repetition. It just feels like it's sort of relentlessly building towards the payoff of the chorus. It's a very beautiful chorus. Marin Blue Daisy have always had like a skill for choruses that stick in your head. The production as well. A lot of crispness in the background, really giving drama. Almost like a soundtrack-esque quality to it. I wasn't expecting that key change there. And again, the piano. The recording is really beautifully done. I mean, the detail you hear in the mix here is gorgeous. And those little backing vocals, everything's so subtle, and yet there's a real drama and real emotion to it. I'm glad it is really coming through in a very visceral kind of way. It's kind of a, it's not just, yeah, it's not, I was going to say, it's not like kind of a dour kind of sound. It's like a genuinely, it's got something between uplifting and at the same time, kind of, that you can feel a sort of sense of a darkness in there. That ending was, whoever did the production and mixing did a great job of really bringing out what Marin Blue Daisy were trying to do with this song, I feel, because apart from anything else, that ending where it just kind of like builds up, it turns up, suddenly stops. That sudden stop is very poignant. Kind of reminds me of the whole thing about like they talk about. I mean, because you can see the clock here actually set to like 11:02, which if I remember correctly, that was the time that the clock tower in Nagasaki stopped at. Which I think this song references as well. So anyway, so let's have a little look at the lyrics. Let's see what the lyrics say as well. And then after we've had a little look at the lyrics, I'll really talk a little bit more about my opinions on this. So I'm going to move myself up in the frame, and because I feel there's a lot to be said here. So let's bring the lyrics up nice and big. Hopefully you can see them. Hopefully it's easy for you to read as well. I'm going to load them up on my screen, and then let's just have a little read through exactly what was being said in the song and get a proper idea for it. So 1945, obviously being the name of the song. So yeah, it starts by saying the clock has stopped and people don't realize it. The important things remain hidden. People call these hidden weapons peace. Endless despair emerges. So yeah, this is obviously, if you didn't know, like for obvious reasons, Japan is a country that's very, very much always at the forefront of pushing for nuclear disarmament. Every time there's any kind of war in the world, you often see protests in Japan of people who just kind of just don't want war to happen. Just it's a country that's been hit so much by this that the idea of, like she says, about hidden weapons being called peace, it is that they say mutually assured destruction. Mad, it is a difficult conversation. I'm not going to dive too much into the political and these kind of things because it's a discussion that I think it goes beyond what we're discussing. But which is here we're talking about music, and but I love the way that she puts that across here. Pathetic, I let it go, and on that day I looked away. My grandpa's ears became deaf, and this song doesn't reach him. I think that one speaks for itself there. What are we fighting for? What does it mean to be alive? No one notices. I wonder what we are being chased by. It's the same now as it was in the past. Only the sea in this town knows, and it is watching where we are going. So I kind of get the feeling there. She's talking a lot about, obviously, Nagasaki, you think very much of being near to the sea. You think about that kind of thing, about the as things change and as you're sort of chasing, you're having all these political struggles and these fights and these wars. The truth is that sort of constant of the sea, of that feeling of, you get that. Can I just cry today, to smile tomorrow? I remember the warmth of my childhood. A small sense of justice causes conflict. I wonder if this sea remembers and is probably still suffering. That's interesting. So she's kind of referencing the sea almost as being a person in this, like it's watching the development and, sort of seeing that almost like you're an eternal watcher. I let it go again, and blame someone else. My grandma's face has become a memory. We'll never meet again. Again, obviously talking about the vast loss of life, and of course you think about that. It's a generational thing. Whenever there's anything like that, regardless of context, there will then be generations of people who will grow up, looking at their family tree and seeing someone missing. I think many of us, I luckily people who follow this channel come from many different countries, many different backgrounds, and it's amazing what I've heard some people talk about, and it is true when you talk to people who've come from countries who've been through some massive loss of life. You hear them talk about that, and then just talking about like grandparents and family, just someone will come up and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that person was lost," and then you're suddenly talking about this huge tragic incident, and it's amazing how those things do really reverberate down through generations, and especially I guess when you live in a city that unfortunately you say the name, you say Nagasaki, and what's the first thing everyone thinks of? What are we fighting for? What does it mean to die? No one notices. What can we believe? Only the sea of this town remembers that nothing has changed from the past to the present. That's a very interesting point. When you're when you're in the city, when you are on the home front of a war, I guess you'd say, it's still a city. Whether it's war or not, it's still a city. Life goes on, and when you have like an instant, like the bomb, people rebuild. I mean, the funny thing is, where I am in Tokyo, I'm right in the middle of where the historically this is where the firebombs were. This entire area was leveled. There's a distinct lack of historic buildings around here for that exact reason, and it reminds you that people rebuild, and often when you rebuild over the past and continue. It just watches over our destination. Dear Dad, I was born into the future. You connected. That's a really poignant line, because obviously she was born into this. The idea that her dad obviously had almost a first-hand connection. I mean, I know, for example, obviously I'm older, and my dad was quite old at the time that he had me as well. But my dad was actually born in 1944 in the middle of an air raid, believe it or not. So it's interesting because I'm imagining what she can really see here is that her dad probably grew up, by the sound of it, very much firsthand experiencing this loss, and his generation was the one who had to build the normality of the world that she's grown up in. Um, I'll live a good life, she says. Hey, Mum, I'll do my best to connect this faded town so that you can be glad that you gave birth to me. Just for today, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Just for today, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. I suspect that was the really beautiful bridge bit. Again, we all have our moments of remembrance when we look back on these tragedies, and you feel things that maybe are very much in the past, but you reconnect to them. The sense of justice that was broken and destroyed by my pathetic self. Now I'm not scared of anything anymore. What are we fighting for? This life is not in vain. The conclusion that everyone wanted, we know, is yes, simply, I can't change from the past to my present. Only the sea of this city knows the answer. Sorry, it can't change from the past to this present. Let's all throw away our weapons and search for our hearts. Look at this. See, no one hates anyone. No one hates anyone. The clock remains stopped. There's a lot in there. I'm not going to go all art school pretentious and pretend to like really pull every single detail out of this, but I think there's some very clear themes. I mean, obviously, there's a big theme of disarmament here. I'm talking about, I mean, there's a certain element of, she's talking very much about the connection of the past and the future. And I feel like the message of rebuilding seems to be very strong in here, but also how in the hard work that is involved in rebuilding, the weird thing is that you rebuild to bring yourself back to normality. And when you bring yourself back to a state of normality, when you rebuild to bring yourself back to where things were before, the obvious repercussion of that is you can end up with a situation where by going back to where things were before, by trying to re-find normality, you can somewhat lose the memory of the if you like, the diversion in your city's history, in your family tree's history. It's almost by going back to normality, you somewhat erase the hardship that happened. It's a complicated subject because you both want to respect that. As she says, for this one day, I want to be able to connect with that tragedy, to cry about the loss of life, to cry about the things that have happened to my family tree when I look back at it. But at the same time, I want to be happy for the future that you guys built out of the rubble of what happened. And it is, it's interesting, isn't it? Because after all the political, I say political, it's not the right word, but after all the conflicts are settled, those conflicts are settled. Those conflicts are in the past. You look at Europe, and obviously I come from Europe, and you look at the European continent, and it's been reshaped. I mean, unfortunately, you could argue that hasn't settled. There's still conflicts brewing there from that trace their way back to the war and even the First World War. And yet, the truth is, the majority of the conflict, the majority of the big players have kind of like said, yeah, it's done. They're different countries. They're not the same people they were back before. And yet, those losses of life remain. Those alterations to histories remain. And I feel like she's captured that superbly in what she's saying here. I feel like a lot of the song's message is not being too gratuitously detailed, but instead just talking about the feeling, referencing things like the generations, referencing her grandparents, who I assume experienced this directly, her parents, who were involved in rebuilding, and then acknowledging herself and her peers as people who are growing up as the first generation in Nagasaki to just have normality, and therefore the importance of remembering. I think it's an important message as well. I think it is true that as much as the world has changed in some ways, it's stayed the same in a lot. And I think many people worry that you can lose connection with the reality of loss. And, once all the scores settled, the truth is the only thing to really talk about is the tragedy of the loss, but also the good things that can be remembered by not repeating the mistakes of the past, not getting, not going down those paths. And so, in a way, her talking about, the disarmament, I guess, would be the more general way of talking about it. But, sort of moving away from conflict, when she talks about this, she is very much talking about, yeah, she's talking about learning from the past. So, yeah, how her generation might not need to do the rebuilding, that her generation can be central to avoiding the repetition. Um, yeah, I think this is very thought provoking, very interesting. I think it almost sounds condescending to say it's very thought provoking from an 18-year-old. And yeah, it needs to be said that obviously she's writing this as a younger person and she's done a fantastic job. I should also say I'm very much referencing, obviously, front and center the lyrics and the vocals, but the entire song as well was beautifully recorded. I mean, stunningly mixed. The mix in this is gorgeous. I love the use of the piano in the background, the use of small sounds, that last little bit where it builds up and suddenly stops. It's a technique you've heard used before, but here it has an extra sense of poignance because it is, you know, the very last line is talking about the stopping of the clock at that moment. It's talking about the vastness of that moment, and I feel like the song, it has that. I feel like Marine Blue Daisy's propensity towards writing very catchy songs is brought into a very effective use here. The chorus definitely sticks with you. It's a chorus that has a quality where you want to sing along to it. It's melodic, it's beautiful, and it's backed up by a very interesting chord progression. I think Marine Blue Daisy, again, they've done a lot of kind of poppy songs in the past. This really strikes that dramatic quality of having a very beautiful and very interesting chord progression. As I say, it avoids sounding repetitive. There's no real points where it sounds like it's just repeating itself in a sort of catchy earworm way. It does its job by having a developing narrative. You know, the song really builds up towards its big moments, towards its chorus, towards its conclusion. It has that bridge which does what a classic bridge should do, which is it deviates you off into a slightly different direction, but very smoothly, and then uses the power of like the building chords and the building emotion. Her voice was brilliant in this as well. The way she conveyed the emotion, everything builds up so that when that fast last chorus comes in, you get the key change and it feels so much more dramatic and poignant and big because the bridge has built you up to it. You get that big final conclusion that especially is poignant in a song like this. I think it's beautiful. I think Marine Blue Daisy have always had a quality for being good with their catchy songs, and they got some real banger earworms. And so as a result, I gotta be honest, I was a little bit tentative going into this about, you know, how's it going to come off? A young band who are good at catchy pop rock songs. How is it going to come off them doing a song about one of the most significant moments in recent human history, and from such a close perspective? I think she used her personal connection really well. I think they used their musical ability really well. It didn't feel like they were trying to force drama. It felt like the dramatic aspects of this song came naturally. It felt like her voice was, like I said, her voice was brilliant, but the musicianship was brilliant. Just everything about this felt like it was, wonderful. And I think this is the kind of song where, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of many of the people who have been most directly connected to what happened in the past, but I think this is a wonderful example of how younger generations can really build a future whilst holding one hand onto the past at the same time, and in a positive way, and I think artistically so, using art and music to do that. I think this is gorgeous. I really do. So massive credit to Marine Blue Daisy, massively mature beyond their years. Beautiful. Anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments, tell me what you think. I would say I should be obvious, but for obvious reasons, in the comments, please do keep it about the music. We don't want to get into a big discussion about history because, again, the whole point about this is sensitivity and talking about the positive vision of the future. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the positive way that young generations can build forwards, and let's give massive credit to Marine Blue Daisy. This was gorgeous. Really was. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, take care of yourselves. And ciao, ciao.